Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live Leadership number 17. Can you believe it? This week, we're going to be focusing on diversification and what you can do as a business leader to make sure that you're managing the risks in your business. My name's Gary Crosby. I'm an action coach, business coach here in the home office this week. And the whole point of this series is just to share with you some ideas and strategies and tips from my leadership journey, 30 years in the Royal Air Force, some time in the corporate world, and now 3 years as a business coach as well, helping business owners to find a little bit of clarity in their life, get some real focus on what's important in their business, and then to take action so that they can get the progress that they want. So I just want you to leave at the end of this saying, I'm glad I logged in. It was useful for me. I've learned something. Give me a thumbs up so I can see that you're here and watching and you can see and hear me, and type in the comments where you're dialing in from if you'd like to do that as well, so I know what kind of audience we've got today. As I said, we're going to look at risk. It's really important as a business leader for you to be able to identify risk, to mitigate risk, to manage risk. I doubt very much that you'll be able to eliminate it totally, but the more you can manage and mitigate, the better it is for your business. Specifically, I want to talk to you today about the risk that comes from you being over-dependent, over-reliant on one supplier and one customer and one employee. That kind of environment where that over-reliance can be a dangerous thing for your business. In particular, I want to introduce you to something called the Switzerland structure. It's part of the value builder system that we use to show business owners how to add value to their business. Now, imagine Switzerland as a country, staunchly neutral. It wasn't involved in the two world wars. It wasn't involved in the Middle East conflicts. It is not a member of the European Union. It only joined the United Nations when they had a referendum in the country. And the Switzerland structure is all about you maintaining that level of neutrality and independence as a business owner, because if you can do that, then you won't be over reliant on one customer or one supplier or one employee. So we're just going to look really quickly at all three of those parts for you, and we're going to start with customers. So ask yourself a question: what percentage of the overall revenue came from your largest customer last year? What proportion of your revenue came from your largest customer? Over-reliance on that one customer leaves you open to a range of risks if they change their behavior. They might go out of business. They might choose to go to a different supplier. So you'd sleep better at night if you can limit that percentage of reliance on one large customer to an absolute maximum 15% and less if you can. So what can you do? Well, a good exercise is to rank your customers by percentage of turnover. Then you'll have the list and you'll see who your most important customer is right there at the top in terms of revenue. And ask yourself some questions. Can I increase my sales to those customers at the lower end of that scale? Can I add more customers to this list so that that diversification means the impact of the largest customer is even less? Sounds kind of obvious, a bit more difficult to do in practice, and you'll want to make sure that you don't allow that one large customer to have too much influence on your revenue. When we take a look at suppliers, slightly different, but the questions are kind of the same really. What would you, how easy would it be rather for you to replace your biggest and most important external supplier? That's a really important question, because if you've only got one or two main suppliers, then you're pretty much at their mercy, right? I'll give you an example. I've got a great client who runs an electrical contracting business. He uses a range of electrical wholesalers to get his materials for the jobs, because if he'd concentrated on just one, then it's more difficult for him to get a really good price. It's more difficult for him to play one off against the other to get the best and fairest price possible for the materials. So by having a wider range of suppliers, then he can at least be sure of getting the fairest price for the materials. Now, there might be a slight problem with that. So for example, if you go with just one supplier, you might get some special pricing discounts. But as a business leader, I want you just to ask yourself, well, is my independence and neutrality more important than making a saving of a few pounds by getting that special pricing discount? You don't want to be beholden to those suppliers. If something happens to them, again, they could go out of business. They could choose to do business in a different way. And that would be difficult for you if you didn't have that diversification. All right. So finally, we'll go on to employees. Now, I want you to think of the most important employee in your company. Okay. Who's the most important employee in your company, and what makes them so important? That's a really important question for you to ask. Is it the fact that they've got great contacts with prospective customers? Have they got great relationships with existing customers? Have they got a lot of your intellectual property and knowledge inside their head? Because what would be the impact of losing that employee? Everybody gets to the point, don't they, where they're thinking about moving on. Maybe that's retiring. Maybe that's going to work for another company. God forbid that's going to work for a competitor of yours. So you've got to be really careful here with these really important employees. So a simple exercise here is just to rank your employees from the easiest to the most difficult to replace. And when you look at that list, you've got to ask yourself, what can I do to be less dependent on these people that are most difficult to replace? Sounds almost counterintuitive in a way. One of the approaches that I would recommend is knowledge sharing by getting them to train other people, for example, or mentoring. Right? If you've got a really senior person in your organization, you give a newer employee to that person to mentor, naturally that knowledge is going to come out of the more senior person and into the younger person, so that you're sharing that knowledge and eliminating some of that risk. A second thing that you can try is to get employees to write the operations manual or the how-to manual for their position, right? Because if they do that, the knowledge is coming out of their head into a document that you own, and you get two benefits. One, that knowledge sharing has happened, and if they leave, you've still got some of that knowledge stored. And secondly, if you're training somebody new to do that role, all of the important information is in that how-to manual, and their training will be much quicker and much more effective. The final thing you could do here is to create what I would call a substitutes bench for your employees, for potential recruits to cover your most important employees. It might be people that you know and trust and like in your industry, and you just have them in your phone book. And if something happens, you can call upon them to help you to mitigate the impact of that one important person leaving the business. All right. So that's the Switzerland structure. You're looking at over-reliance on one supplier, one customer, or one employee, and the things that you as a business leader can do to mitigate the risks of that. First of all, to reduce that reliance, and then to deal with anything if it would happen if you had a small number of suppliers and customers in particular. So give me a thumbs up if that was useful for you. You can share that with somebody, tag that in. If you're watching on replay, still give me a thumbs up, because it's still good to see who's been watching the videos. If you're watching on YouTube later on, you know the drill. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, because we do this every single week, and you'll get a little notification to say there's some new content for you to watch. So that was LinkedIn Live number 17, all about the Switzerland structure and how to increase the value in your company. Next week in LinkedIn Live number 18, we're going to be looking at your role as a business leader in securing revenue streams to ensure the maximum amount of recurring revenue possible in your business, because the more recurring revenue you've got in the business, the more attractive you are to a buyer. So some important lessons in just 10 minutes or so next week. Thanks very much for watching LinkedIn Live number 17, and we'll see you again next Wednesday at midday.